there. Um, didn't feel like actually opening up a panel and all that tonight, but I still wanted to get on here and talk about. I just got into the house a little while ago. I was actually just walking in when this news broke. I had a pretty busy evening. Had to go out to dinner and deal with some other things before that, but. I will be live tomorrow with a panel discussion about this, but I did want to come on and talk about it. The Atlanta Falcons have found their next general manager, and it is Ian Cunningham, who was, I always think, the favorite from the moment that the search started. The Falcons interviewed Ian Cunningham actually for the president of football position that we all knew Matt Ryan was going to get. But I think that there was actually a big purpose behind that. And they were always targeting Ian Cunningham for this GM position. And, even if they knew they weren't going to hire him as president of football, they wanted to see how he could potentially do in terms of an interview. And reports were, even in that president of football interview, he knocked it out of the ballpark and was the favorite for GM. And it came down to him and James Lipfert from the Houston Texans, who it is reported um, had had two very good interviews for the job, and he seemingly did make it a close race, but in the end, the Falcons always favored Ian Cunningham. And I guess you could also just point it down to the fact that Ian Cunningham just, he had more chances to talk to the Atlanta Falcons, be it interviewing for the president of football and then two interviews for GM. That's what ultimately gave him the edge over James Lipfert, and he did end up. It was announced just after 8 o'clock by Adam Schefter and all the other insiders that the Falcons will be bringing in Ian Cunningham as their general manager, and it was confirmed by the Atlanta Falcons. So I want to read off a couple of statements. First one's for Matt Ryan, and he says, quote, it was evident through our rigorous interview process Ian was the right choice for our general manager position. His vision for our team and organization aligned exactly with the type of leader we were seeking to help take the Falcons to the next level. Throughout Ian's career, including Super Bowl championships in Baltimore and Philadelphia, Ian has demonstrated the drive and focus it takes to build championship contenders and put them in position to win games. We love his broad and deep experience across every aspect of talent evaluation and know he's learned from some of the best in the league. Pairing him with Coach Stefanski is exciting for us, and we can't wait to see them bring our shared vision to life in everything we do starting now. Um, let's see. Here is a statement. Here is a statement from Ian Cunningham. It is truly an honor to be the general manager of the Atlanta Falcons, and I couldn't be more thankful to Arthur Blank, Matt Ryan, Greg Beatles, Josh Blank, and the entire search committee for believing in me, said Cunningham. As a Falcons fan growing up in Roswell when the Dirty Birds were rolling, the Braves were on fire, and the city was hosting the Summer Olympics, I lived the passion of Atlanta sports fans, and I can't wait to be a part of bringing that fire and energy back to the city. It's been incredible to build a relationship with Matt over the last several weeks and to have an immediate connection with Kevin. I can't wait to work with both of these great football minds to put a team on the field everyone will be excited about. We all share the same vision for what the Atlanta Falcons should and will be, and it's time to work. So, I want to I want to actually talk about this last quote that I read off. Man, to hear Ian Cunningham say that he lived to be an Atlanta sports fan, that he grew up rooting for the Falcons. He called it, man, when he called us the Dirty Birds, that, really is kind of what actually, it got me. It got me because this is clearly a guy that, has a connection to the city. And I did not know that he actually grew up in Roswell. Um, and I've done my fair share of research on Ian Cunningham, but I did not know that there was this whole layer of passion that I really didn't even know about. So, man, when I say that, it really obviously excites me to see this, that Ian Cunningham does have that, extra motivation and drive from growing up a Falcons fan and, obviously experiencing, I mean, he experienced the Braves during the 90s. He experienced, when the city of Atlanta hosted the Olympics. He clearly understands what it is like, to be at the top. And man, when I tell you that that is something that is just very, I think it's very noteworthy and definitely I think catches your attention because you now have two guys in this building in Matt Ryan and Ian Cunningham who in one way or another have a very developed sense of passion for the Atlanta Falcons and want to see the Atlanta Falcons win. And when you have that in your building, I'm of the personal opinion when you have guys like that, that I think can be that much of the difference in terms of how they're going to approach making this team better because they want to see it personally. That's not to attack someone like Terry Fontenot and say that he didn't want to see the Atlanta Falcons succeed. But I mean, at the end of the day, Terry Fontenot grew up in Louisiana. This was a great opportunity for him and, his family. And, I definitely do think that he was absolutely invested in the success of the Falcons. But at the end of the day, when you have guys that have lived it, both Matt Ryan being the franchise quarterback of this team and Ian Cunningham growing up a Falcons fan, that that is what really excites me about this. Now, a couple of things, and I don't plan on being on here very long, but really at the end of the day, I'm not shocked that Ian Cunningham was the guy once again. I always kind of figured that he would be the guy. Um and now I'm very interested to see what the timeline is moving forward because the Senior Bowl I believe is on Sunday and I believe the Falcons already have some of their internal scouting department there, but it's going to be very interesting to see how fast Ian Cunningham moves on that. Which obviously I hope that he moves immediately on that. Matter of fact, just fly his ass down to the Senior Bowl right now because I mean there's guys playing in the Senior Bowl this weekend that are definitely going to I think be prime and in prime position to potentially be picked up by the Atlanta Falcons in the draft in April. But um I do want to go over once again just some of Ian Cunningham's experience prior to Chicago, where he spent the last 4 years as assistant GM under Ryan Poles. Cunningham spent 5 seasons with the Philadelphia Eagles, where he was a member of the club's front office when the organization captured its first Super Bowl win in 2017. Cunningham began his time in Philadelphia as director of college scouting in 2017 before earning two promotions to assistant director of player personnel and director of player personnel. In his 5 year tenure in Philadelphia, the Eagles qualified for the playoffs 4 times, winning the NFC East twice and winning the aforementioned Super Bowl. I also think it's important to note he really began his career working in Baltimore under Ozzie Newsome. This is listen, if you want to talk about pedigree in terms of front office experience, you're not going to get much better than this guy. This guy worked under arguably two of the greatest executives that the NFL has seen this century, and Ozzie Newsome and Howie Roseman. And the work that, both of them have done, obviously, in building those rosters, primarily through the draft. And listen, at the end of the day, that's clearly what the Atlanta Falcons need. And that is the way that you construct a good NFL team that stays consistent. You do it through the draft. Teams are built through the draft time and time again. And that is what you need. You need someone in here that is going to build this thing through the draft, has an eye for talent, and that is how you get these missing pieces in here. So I am obviously very encouraged by, obviously his track record where he has been, and he's also been crucial in putting together that Bears team that finally came together this year. So when you look at obviously the Falcons right now, there's obviously a lot of guys already here. Bijan Robinson, Drake. He's got a very Aiden Cunningham has a very big decision to make on Kyle Pitts, and I would honestly expect that the Falcons are at the very least going to try to retain Kyle Pitts. It's very possible we could see the franchise tag being used. Um, I did see earlier that it is important to remember Chicago drafted a tight end in the top 10 of last year's draft in Colson Loveland, and that turned out to be a pretty good pick for them. So, excuse me, like I said, I'm kind of out of sorts tonight, but um, it's an encouraging hire. But as I've said, these guys still got to prove it, but this is a hire especially that does encourage me. I'm obviously still have questions about how he and Kevin Stefanski are going to work together, and just hoping that they do have their visions aligned. I don't think they guys should agree on everything, because I think if that's the case, then you know that's also a big red flag. But you want their visions aligned, and hopefully that is absolutely the case. What does Aiden Cunningham think of the quarterback position? And it sounds like Michael Penix is still in the team's plans to be this team's franchise quarterback long term, and I'm not going to argue with that. I've never once doubted Michael Penix. There was also some news about Michael Penix in an interview he did with Zach Klein. I want to touch on it at a later date also. But there's a lot of decisions that have to be made, and Aiden Cunningham is going to have to hit the ground running with these decisions. But now you have a power structure in Atlanta that has largely come together in obviously Matt Ryan and Kevin Stefanski, and now Aiden Cunningham as general manager. Those are going to be the three guys that are in charge of what the future of the Atlanta Falcons really does look like. So, as I say, I'm encouraged by a lot of what I've heard, but at the end of the day, with the vision of this team, you're not really going to fully know how well of a job these guys are doing until the Falcons hit the field. And that's really where I am at this point. But I mean, so far I don't have too much to complain about. I don't think there's anything egregious that has been done so far, but once again, this is only the start. This is only the introduction to this whole thing. So, but listen, I think Aiden Cunningham at the end of the day was the right choice for the job. He has the experience, he has the pedigree. He clearly is impressive. He's, highly praised throughout the NFL. He was called one of the top executives in the league. So, at the end of the day, I can't complain about the hire. Can't complain about it one bit. I don't think there were, many candidates, if maybe any candidate that the Falcons interviewed, that was better than Aiden Cunningham. Someone who I feel like is going to bring I do think has a solid vision of what a football team should look like. And Aiden Cunningham also was a former offensive lineman. So, he's played the game. He's lived the experience of being a Falcons fan. So, those are things that encourage me. But once again, I need to see this team go out and execute it. Really don't have much else to say. Shout out to the one person in the chat who subscribed to the channel. Um, Once again, I'll be live tomorrow, and I'll have more thoughts about it then. Um, I do just I want to scroll down and see if there was a statement. Um, here is a statement from Arthur Blank. From the first time we met with Ian, his bright and innovative mind quickly made an impact on our group. Through our research, it is clear he is a selfless individual driven by a pursuit of perfection and is impeccable with his word while never pausing on his quest to learn and challenge the status quo. As we previously said, our objective is to win games and contend for championships every year, a focus that Ian shares and has demonstrated throughout his career. We look forward to the leadership we now have in place with Matt Ryan, Kevin Stefanski, and Aiden Cunningham, and the work that is to come from our organization as it builds on what is already a strong foundation. So, listen, I mean, and another thing to note too, this is Arthur Blank getting the hell out of the way. He now has, really not just, I mean, he now has two, football executives in charge, to the point where there's no more room for anyone else. There's no room for a fucking Rich McKay. There's no room for Arthur Blank. And even matter of fact, Ian Cunningham isn't even reporting to Arthur Blank. He's reporting to Matt Ryan, and Matt Ryan is the one reporting to Arthur Blank. Now, there's been questions about should the Falcons be hiring a head coach before general manager, but at the end of the day, and I have questions about that too. I think the Atlanta Falcons, they knew that they had to go and get Kevin Stefanski because that the coaching carousel dominoes were getting ready to fall soon. The Falcons could have honestly have taken all their time in the world with GM in the sense that they were the only opening. So that's why they were able to take their sweet time and wait all the way until tonight to make this announcement. So listen, there's a lot of praise about Ian Cunningham, and I have a lot of things that motivate me about him, particularly his time and successful organizations. Also, the fact they grew up a Falcons fan. But at the end of the day, he has to go out and he has to prove it, just like with Kevin Stefanski, and hell, just like even with Matt Ryan at the end of the day, because this is a very different role for him. But I'll be live tomorrow, and y'all can voice your opinions about it. I know the typical will be up there, but the link I'll be live tomorrow, probably about, I'd say, 6 o'clock, somewhere around there, and we'll talk about it. We're supposed to get snow this weekend too, so we'll see how that plays out. So good to get this dude in here before the snowstorm. But knowing where he's coming from, he should be all too used to that. But anyways, now that the Falcons have made all the important hires, now it's time to see what the hell they do with this team. And we're gonna be here every step of the way for it. But appreciate you guys for watching, and make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share out. I'll see you all in the next video.